Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our July 14th Commission meeting. And at this time, would you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and also 10 seconds of silence for those who have lost their life to the pandemic. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Deanne, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner McCall,
Here.
Vice Mayor Hanna,
Here.
Commissioner Flagg,
Here.
Commissioner Hoofnagel,
Here.
Mayor Kennedy.
Here, thank you. At this time, we are going to have our agenda item number 1, which is the report of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. You'd like-
They submitted a written report.
Yes, they did. And so did our fire department. PSTA also submitted their report. With that, we'll go to public comments. We have a 3-minute time limit. Any member of the audience may come forward, give his or her name, address, and state any comment or concern that he or she may have regarding any matter over which the City Commission has control, excluding agenda items. All statements made to the City Commission shall be made to the City Commission as a whole, not directed to any individual City Commission member, and no personnel or slanderous remarks shall be permitted. No speaker shall be interrupted, and no debate shall take place between the speaker and the City Commission. With that, hi, Kelly.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Sisrick, and I live at 448 Harbor Drive South. And first I want to thank our city manager and the staff for doing a great job administering the city's fireworks ordinance this year. No major injuries or houses burned down that I've heard of, and I consider that a success since there were no public displays available for people to watch this year. Second, I want to speak to Resolution 2020-07 that's on the consent agenda tonight. That resolution relates to how our city conducts online or telephone meetings during the COVID-19 emergency period as established by the governor's executive orders. I would like to be able to hear our commissioners and members of the public weigh in on this policy, and it would have been preferable to have this resolution on the agenda proper and not buried in the consent agenda tonight. I think the city is headed in the right direction with this resolution and in its approach to virtual meetings by allowing the public to be able to phone in their public comments. I participated in several Zoom meetings, and I found that a lot of meeting participants, including myself, have problems raising their hand in the online format to be able to speak at the appropriate time. I think that public comments via phone is a better option than online participation, but with several caveats. First, I think you'll need 2 phone lines so that a second caller can get through when you take up controversial items like on-street parking and golf cart changes. One phone line won't cut it for that. Instead, it would be helpful to designate line 1 and line 2 and rotate those callers so the next line can call in on the unused line. Also, public comment needs to be accepted on each agenda item after it's discussed. It's not sufficient to have a single comment period at the beginning of the meeting to cover all agenda items. That's how I currently read the resolution, and if that's the current plan, I don't think it's sunshine law friendly. A public comment period should be permitted at the end of each meeting for any agenda or non-agenda item, so no one's comments are missed due to busy phone lines or technical mishaps. We used to have a public comment period at the end of each meeting, and I think it's appropriate to renew that policy now, at least temporarily, until we go to in-person meetings full-time again. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time? Hi, Phil. Please state your name and address.
Phil Roble, 112 13th Avenue. First of all, I'd like to thank the city for the parking on one side of the street only that's going up in a lot of areas. I still think though the public needs the signs to be dumbed down a little, because it says no parking with 2 arrows. And unfortunately, I see people parking and saying, well, the arrow's only pointing right there. So I mean, if next time we buy signs, I think it would be a great idea to say no parking this side of the street. And on that, I understand that we're gonna be looking at the parking again, and I just hope that they don't do away with parking on the streets completely. I think one side should be left open for the public with those signs that say no parking on this side of the street on the other side. With that said, the fireworks, yeah, it was, I mean, everyone did a great job on that. I'm glad that that went forward and it was safe, and I went out to the beach and it wasn't wall-to-wall people. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time?
Good evening. I'm Stan McFarland. I live at 212 20th. Been a resident for 19 years, and I got a call from some good friends and neighbors that are here tonight also, and we're all in favor of the appropriate use of our properties for rental purposes and so on. But I think so many of us feel that this Airbnb thing is just absolutely out of hand. And I know that my friends will comment on when they speak tonight, but there's a fellow that recently bought a duplex down on First and 24th, and he's without permits, or he's gone ahead and converting it to a quad and going to turn it into Airbnb. I guess my friends say that the fire department, somebody challenged him on it, but that's just one example. I know that we live at 212 20th at the corner of 20th and 2nd, and in just the last 2 or 3 years, why I can count at least 6 properties that have gone from either annual rentals to the Airbnb concept. And I don't know if the commission, I know the commission's aware of the concerns on that, and because it's not just the fact that there's so much property being converted to that kind of use, but it's the fact that those folks, they pay big money to rent the properties, which is good for the owners, but in exchange for that, they think that they can put an awful lot of people in a 2-bedroom. They'll put 10 people in a 2-bedroom, and then they'll be up all night partying and playing loud music. There's one just behind us on Bay Boulevard. And she bought that and turned it into a duplex and put in a pool, and it's I don't mean it's outrageous, but it's just there, and it's just a different climate with people there, different people there all the time, and partying during the day and night. And then she also bought the one at 21st and Bay Boulevard on the north side, and she did the same thing there. She turned that into that used to be a duplex for annual rentals, and was just a nice, nice arrangement. But now she's got four of them, and all Airbnbs, and so I just wish that the commission. I know you're saying I've been on the periphery of hearing what's going on. I know you're concerned about it, but I do think that we've got to hang on to the character of the city. The annual rentals are, that's a normal part of it, but the seasonal, 2 and 3 days of wild weekends we've got to be careful of that. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Francesco Di Maria, 2407 Bay Boulevard. I also just want to touch base with the gentleman who just spoke. I understand that we've done away with building department inspections or division of buildings or inspections. With that, I understand, I noticed much more construction going on, and I think they're taking that for granted, they can get away with turning a duplex. You know, there's rules. On that note, you know, I'm not against the Airbnb, but when you cram 10 occupants into a 2-bedroom, 1 bed, in the time of epidemic, they're from out of state, they're jeopardizing, you know, our houses, some of them are 6-7 feet apart, separated by a chain link fence or not. And you have an influx of people from different states, and, you know, they're vacationing, so they're loud, they're hanging out, it's nice. I just think now, at this particular time, and I'm not afraid of the pandemic, I just think that there should be a holdover at least of 3 days. You know, these regulations stand, but nobody's obeying them because nobody checks on anything. It's just, you know, everybody's making commissions and nobody's thinking of their neighbor. And for instance, the 4th of July, the garbage wasn't picked up, and I have an Airbnb next to us, it's 5 units. So they didn't pick up the garbage for some reason on Friday. So the garbage stayed all weekend till, I don't know when they came back. I mean, just smelly, overfilled. It just looked and smelled horrendous. And a wedding party happened to stay in this building. They rented 3 units. 32 people were in this building. It was a free-for-all. And the garbage and the children, they brought a dog with them. You know, it was a pit bull. It was cute, it was nice, but they had no business bringing a dog to a property where it wasn't allowed. But it didn't matter. They were here and the dog was staying. They left the dog in a kennel overnight outside, in the rain. I mean, you put yourself in these predicaments with people, strangers, and you want to just defend your property and your neighbors, and you might end up getting to an argument or an altercation just for standing up for your common consideration. And I just think there should be a little more oversight on properties and see if they have smoke detectors, if they're up to par. You crank 10 people in a bed, in 1 bedroom, 2-bedroom, 1 bed. I don't think it's sanitary. But I'm not one to tell people how to live. I just think there should be a stronger oversight on what's going on at the moment. The other thing is the overcrowding. I have a YouTube sensation who lives on my corner. At any given weekend, there's 100 kids parked around my house and partying on the beach, and disrespectful. They leave their garbage before they get in the car, and if you say something to them, they automatically curse at you. It's really appalling. I live on Bay Boulevard, so when you line all these
You're going to have
cars
to
up
wrap it up. You've
on
had
one
your 3
side,
minutes.
if you're coming down the other way, I see an elderly woman almost lose her life because 2 cars don't fit on these roads. So with that, I just hope that the city looks at the signs and the Airbnbs and everything else. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And we'll address those comments. And you may come up, ma'am.
I just want to continue. My name is Maria Wozinski. I live at 141 First Street in Indian Rocks. I just want to continue a little bit about those short-term rentals. Because we're talking Airbnb, but we're talking not just Airbnb. We're got so many different companies renting those units. And even now, if you will drive on First Street and 23rd, and you will see the duplex, which is, I call duplex, this is not duplex because it's 1 people live in the bottom, 1 in the top. They got 11 or 12 cars parking on the grass, inside, outside, and catering, and of course big party, and those units. And that goes not just today, that goes every weekend, and like it was said, people changing, not like give them a little bit of space to clean up those units, make it prefer for the other people. People living in the morning, afternoon, you got next people. And that is every weekend like this. And the garbage Friday was not picked up For sure, everybody who drove, even, code enforcement or whatever, they see garbage everywhere. If you don't have enough space in a can, what he was giving to us, such a beautiful can to put the garbage in cover nicely, to keep them nice and safe, order more. I'm not talking about the city. They should order more, pay for it, and make the neighborhood look nice, because those people who are renting, they don't care. They throw it everywhere. The owner, they don't care, because people next door, they complain to him. The answer is, call the police. If you don't like it, call the police. I don't think this is the answer for the police to handle those kind of things. This is the owners. They should be responsible. They should be punished with the tickets or anything. I don't know, some fees, because this is their house. And we have to care about the neighborhood. And this is one concern about the garbage. Second concern is same like we're talking about. When you even look at on those Airbnb and you know those neighbors and how many they got bedrooms and bathrooms, and they got 10 people. 1 bedroom, 10 people. Would you tell me if somebody need to go to the bathroom same time, where they go? Of course, you see them outside, peeing all over. If not that fence, they go to neighbor's fence and pee. It doesn't go this way. We have to just do something to make sure that neighborhood was always beautiful. We are for 20 years here, and now everything goes in the ditch. That has to be under control. And I got about the lights, which is on the 24 and 1st, which is, you can see the lights is covered with a tree. From the city, they cut a little bit in the bottom, but they didn't open the lights. The light is covered, the lights is not working. It's still not working already for so many weeks. And even you call, nobody just do anything. That's which is my concern. On the 24th and 1st Street, the lights which is on the front of the duplex what we're talking about, they're changing now to 4 units duplex with the little rooms on the bottom. Thank you so much.
Did you get this lady's name?
My name?
Yes, ma'am.
Maria Wodzinski.
Maria.
Maria.
2401 First Street.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
I'm Richard Kozinski, 2401 First Street. And I want to comment on that duplex, what they remodeling right now. And one of those guys over there, what they're planning to do. And he says we're going to turn this into a duplex. And in the 2-floor, ground floor, they're turning it into an apartment. And then on top, they remodeling the pool. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, on 23rd and 1st Street, when my wife was saying that, you got 11 cars, and we're gonna be living right across the street, and seeing all those people screaming in the pool. I don't think this is really right the way the occasion rental out. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time?
Did I go again?
No, I'm sorry, I can't have you go again.
There's so many things concerning me. I'm not saying that we
Sir,
need to think-
The presiding officer said no further comment. Thank you.
With that, I'm going to close the public comment, and we will go to reports. Are you going to do is there anything that you would like to comment on tonight, Randy?
No comment. We are preparing for the workshop next week, a bevy of issues to discuss. And other than that, pleasure to be here on the occasion of this meeting. And thank you all for being flexible as we continue to navigate this.
City Manager Greg Mansell?
No, I'll
anything?
submit my report in writing.
Okay. And the commission? Yes.
I do think someone should address some of the issues that were brought up, so if you don't feel comfortable, I'd be happy to use my time to address.
You have to speak
We
more
can
into
both,
the
we can
mic.
both talk. If you'd like to just have a few comments, go ahead.
Sorry if it was hard to hear, but we're spread out and the microphones are not in the right spot. I wanted to address 2 matters that were brought up. The outsourcing of the building permit process did not change our building codes. it did not change our code enforcement capabilities. In many cases, inspections were done by the county anyway. So the construction happening without a permit is still under the purview of the city. A phone call placed to the city manager, code enforcement, is the right way to voice that so that you can get it addressed. We take it very seriously as a city. It's not something that we've outsourced, and it should be looked into. It just has to be noticed to the city manager. We can't go back and forth, but please let me state. The second issue that was brought up on the short-term rentals, quality of life issues that arise in the short-term rentals are also under the code enforcement purview of the city. Things like garbage left out. If there's a violation of a noise ordinance, they should call the sheriff. Unfortunately, that's who enforces our noise ordinances, just like if it was a bar playing their music too loud. We as a city do not have the ability to regulate short-term rentals. The state has taken that capability away from us. Not just Indian Rocks Beach, but all cities. So I understand, and I think we all empathize with what you're saying. In fact, our lifestyles are also being impacted by these short-term rentals, but as a city, as a municipality, we do not have the legal authority to do anything besides enforce our garbage codes, our noise ordinances, and in the future, hopefully, our parking ordinances. And when it comes to certain ordinances, we do use the sheriff's office to enforce those, especially during weekends and off hours. Thank you.
The other piece is the fact that you have the ability to write to Nick DeSeglia, who is our representative, and he serves on one of the committees that has to do with short-term rentals. He lives in Indian Rocks Beach, and it's very important to write to him because you can write an email to me and I will forward it to him. He's the one that you need to get this to because any changes that are made to the vacation rentals are going to have to go through the state at this time. Nick DeSeglia. Okay? Is there anyone on the commission who would like to address this at all that we might have missed? Ed and I might have missed something that you think is important.
Mayor, may I briefly just intervene
Yes,
to add, and apologies for interrupting during city commission comments. I just wish to add, from the legal standpoint, of course, we sympathize with the frustrations as a property owner that you're encountering. We don't mean to in any way minimize or invalidate that. As Commissioner Hoofnagel alluded to, there are legal limits to what we can do. That said, the issue of short-term rentals in Indian Rocks Beach has been analyzed, discussed, considered, followed, almost like religion over the last 3 to 4 years here, culminating in an ordinance that is facilitating the ability of the city to track, monitor, and know who to hold accountable on a property-by-property basis. Everything that Commissioner Hoofnagel said is exactly right in terms of how code enforcement works and alerting us or alerting the sheriff depending on hours and depending on the nature of the violation. Similarly, the remedy primarily to your concerns about short-term rental woes, obviously a sitting member of the House of Representatives in Tallahassee is not going to handle code enforcement to you, but in as much as you wish to see a policy change, that policy change needs to first come from Tallahassee before the Indian Rocks Beach City Commission can do more about it in the ways that its residents want to, and quite frankly, its commission wants to. And that's a bigger discussion that's been had ad nauseum for some time, but I just want to make sure, only because there are some newer faces here and potentially watching as this is broadcast or made available online, to make sure that those new faces know this is something your commission has worked very diligently on and continues to monitor very closely alongside your residents, the residents. It's been a partnership, I can tell you, by way of example. Some of the members present tonight will come up to me and make sure our tracking of the statutes and ordinances align. And so I just wanted to make sure it was clear that in addition to the ordinances that regulate the nuisance aspects of any kind of property use, trash, parking, etc., there also is, in as much as we are capable of having one, a short-term rental ordinance that the town has adopted and implemented that aligns, to the best of our knowledge, with the operative law. So I just wanted to make sure that was very clear.
Commissioner
I
Flag?
apologize for speaking, but could you just address the zoning issue? Doesn't the city have control over zoning?
No, sir. We cannot restrict the operation of short-term rentals at this point.
But what
And there's
about
nothing in its
zoning?
zoning. This has been analyzed at length, and rather than engage in a colloquy about this, I'll turn it back to the city commission.
We cannot engage in duration, frequency, and
Prohibition.
exactly. So those are the three that we cannot, those have been taken over by the state. Diane?
What if you change the zoning though?
We have no control.
Diane?
I had a question for Randy.
Yes, ma'am.
The licensing now is handled through the state, the Division of Business and Professional Regulation. Is there an avenue where complaints could be called in or sent into them regarding any disturbances at these short-term rentals or any infractions?
The DBPR website makes clear how those issues should be addressed, especially there was not a new statute passed that I'm recalling at this moment, this session. There was one, and then, much like in the years past, a major current event happened and everything changed. DBPR's stronghold came especially with the pandemic when the state started issuing orders specific to the operation of short-term rentals and occupancy. The city's ordinance also contemplates receiving certification from DBPR. So in as much as you wish to raise your concerns with this body and other agencies, DBPR is another avenue. Go through their websites, their contact means as well. We don't facilitate that, so I can't speak to the precise process with them.
Thank you. Is there any, Vice Mayor? Anything else, Joe? Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move ahead. Are there any additions or deletions tonight? Seeing none, we'll move to the next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. Is there a move to approval? Or Randy, you may read it.
Yeah, I'm gonna, there are 3 items on the consent agenda. Item A is approval of the June 30, 2020 regular city commission meeting minutes. Item B is resolution number 2020-07, a resolution of the city of Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, creating a best practices guide for communications media technology, virtual and telephonic meetings, providing for legislative findings, and providing for an effective date hereof. There was one narrow Scrivener's error that was noted in there where it says recognizes instead of recognized. Those kinds of things can be fixed after the fact, but I wanted you to know we are aware of that in one of the provisions. And item C, reappointments to the Board of Adjustment and Appeals as regular board members for 2-year terms expiring on June 30, 2023. And those for members Waldemar H. Clark, Jr. and Stuart DeVore. Those are the items on the consent agenda, Commissioners.
Thank you very much. And with that, is there a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda and also have a comment at the end.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Would you like to state your...
Yes, I wanted to thank the citizen who brought up the concern about this best practice guide. I had gone through it a couple times. I believe it sets a template. I don't think it changes the Roberts rules or in any way the ordering of public commentary. And so any of those concerns that may have been raised, I'm 100% confident we can address those in the implementation of this.
Thank you. Diane? Anything? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We are on to agenda item number 6. This is a BOA case number 2020-04, 124 13th Avenue. With that, Randy?
Yes, this is considering a variance request of 17.5 feet into the required 25-foot front setback, resulting in a total front yard of 7.5 feet to allow for a new pool on the property located at 124 13th Avenue, Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, and legally described as Indian Beach Re-Revised, First Edition, Block 78, Lot 11, and South Half Vacated Alley adjacent north, parcel number 013014204807801110. As this is a variance request, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. In the last 3 months, we've not had one, so by way of reminder, In a quasi-judicial setting, you are not making the law, but rather applying the established law within your community to the facts and evidence presented to you today. You are to consider competent substantial evidence in making your determination of those, whether or not the legislative criteria established have been satisfied. Before we begin, has anybody on the commission conducted any site visits for the limited purpose of evaluating the application before you?
No.
No.
All members responding in the negative. Have any of the members had any ex parte communications with the applicant prior to today's hearing?
No.
I did receive a text from the owner.
Could you please disclose the contents of the text?
Yes, I just requested if they provide a document, how many copies would be good.
Thank you. Do you think that interaction in any way impairs your ability to impartially adjudicate this matter?
No, it does not.
Okay, thank you, Member McCall. With that, will anybody who intends to offer testimony or evidence before this body about the presentation this evening, the application for BOA case number 2020-04, including the applicant, their agent, or anybody else who intends to speak, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are going to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much. With that, staff can begin its presentation.
Greg?
Thank you. I'm sitting in for Hetty tonight. This is at 124 13th Avenue, BOA case number 2020-04. As Randy indicated, it's a variance request at 17.5 feet into the required 25-foot yard setback. The applicant's intention is to build a pool in that area. This is the property in question on 13th. The area where they want to build the pool is in this area here where they previously had, I think, some ponds there. The Board of Adjustment heard the case and recommended on a 3-1 vote for denial of the request. This is a survey of the property. The pool they're going to they want to construct is located in this on this property. This is what's unique about this property is that when you ride down 13th and look at it, you would assume by looking at the property that I'll pull up a picture here, a property that the front door is actually the address of the property, and it is not. This is first, so if you pull up and look at the front the property, the doors going in, the main doors going into the house are here. This is 13th, so this is their property actually is addressed on the 13th side, which makes it a little unique. It's another shot looking back towards First and 13th. And this looks back to the south on First. This is the property in question. This is where the main doors are on the house. Like I said, the Board of Adjustment heard it and recommended denial, so that's what you had before you is a variance request of 17 feet into the 25-foot required setback.
For sake of clarity in the record, before the presentation began, Member McCall referenced copies or an inquiry about copies. The packet you received before you that looks like this with the variance approval request printed out, that is materials provided by the applicant. The staff reporting was in your agenda packet materials and in the digital presentation before you.
Thank you, Randy. Before we go out to have the applicant come forward, do any of the commissioners have any questions for the staff? Okay, with that, I'd like the applicant to come forward at this time.
Hello, good evening. My name is Jorge Blasino, and I reside at 124 13th Avenue. This presentation, the materials that I furnished today also had a PowerPoint presentation, but I did not, it cannot be displayed, unfortunately. I do want to find out first, before I go any further, is there a specific time limit that I have to get through this in, or?
Well, let's see how you go.
The rules of procedure open.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to go through this. I wanted to start off, first of all, by thanking everyone for their time and consideration on this matter. We're very appreciative of that. And I'm going to start with a short introduction on the property. We've been residents of Indian Rocks Beach since September of 2015. Patty, my wife in the blue there, we intend to make this our forever home, and we were looking for a place near the beach. We found this community, fell in love with it, and that's why we decided on this property. However, when we purchased this property, there were a couple issues that we ran into. If you look in your presentation, the very first page under introduction, I want to point out that the unique bill, the unique bill for this home, which has been already raised, it's really non-optimal. It's something that us, as the purchasers of the home that was already constructed, had no control over. We really don't have any reasonable remedy to, or way to remedy the situation of the home. I even actually contacted a contractor at one point to see what it would cost to elevate the house and eliminate the garage to give us yard space. That was not something that was reasonably within our reach to do. And basically we're forced to work with what we have, with the property lines as they are. On the second page, with the hardship header on the left, I just go into some of the events that led to the hardship, because the way the home was built, the fact that there was an actual fence, a permanent fence in the backyard of the neighboring property, which is 122 13th Avenue. We come to find out later that both properties, 124 and 122, were owned by the same person. They had put up that fence going through the middle of 122, where it was only accessible from our property, the property that we were considering for purchase. So they made it appear that half portion of the backyard of the neighboring property would convey with the sale of 124 13th Avenue. I have pictures of that on the following slides. After the boundary survey, I've got an indication on this particular page. If you turn to the one with the survey, you'll see that there's a picture on the bottom right that illustrates three things. The entrance that was discussed that's unique to our home, it's on 1st Avenue, although we have a 13th Avenue address. Also, the original fenced-in area, which is located, as we're looking at the house, it would be on the north side towards the back left of the picture, right where the red arrow is. That's the portion of the backyard for 122 that was literally fenced off and only accessible through our property. We discussed that with the realtor that was selling the home to get a clear yes or no answer as to whether that conveyed to the property. They simply would not answer us, and we believe that the fact that the reason for that is because they were having trouble selling the home because it took up the full footprint, there was no yard. So we were deceived, but we did, of course, you have to get a survey. So we went and applied for the survey. We confirmed that that part would not convey. We're already deep into the deal at this point. We weren't going to back out. We had already lost a previous deal on a home in a different location, and we didn't want to lose this house because we fell in love with it. So at that point, we contacted the owner that was selling both properties. He did discuss with us the possibility of what he called a lifetime usage variance. So what he meant to say was that for some type of arrangement, legal and monetary, presumably, that we would be able to use the back portion of the yard for 122 13th Avenue for as long as we live in the house. We do intend to live there for the rest of our lives. And we don't rent, or we're not going to turn it into an Airbnb or anything crazy. We love the community, like I said. So once we completed the sale of the property, that offer for that lifetime usage variance was rescinded, basically. He thought he would have trouble selling the other property with half a yard. Additionally, it probably wasn't legal to split a parcel. I believe that we reached out to the city to inquire about that. And we found out that that wasn't even possible, so that was another deception. That basically left us with no reasonable place to put a pool. This was our dream home. That's specifically why we bought it. We wanted to have a house with a pool near the beach. And so consequently, we called various pool companies, and we had 3 come back with designs. We had been told that the only reasonable space that we could put a pool was in the south end of the property, which is technically the front yard. We always viewed it as the side because we enter in on First Avenue. Excuse me 1 second here. So the pictures of the fence are there. Ironically enough, you can see that the picture on the bottom right here is a flooded yard, which is a pool in itself. But that was after one of the storms that we had. It just illustrates that fence was literally there. These posts were driven 3-4 feet to the ground. It was a permanent fence. And it took quite a bit of effort to remove that. On the following page, what I have illustrated here are pictures of the area, the front south property. That picture is probably several months old because I can still see our beautiful arecas and palms that I miss greatly. We had all that beautiful foliage in front of the house, and the picture all the way to the right this is as the property currently stands today. The reason it stands that way is because if you look at the next page, you'll see that we submitted a request to the city of Indian Rocks, this document here, which I also have on the following page if you want to see the copy of that approval. I specifically stated that we were building a pool and that we wanted to remove those trees for the reason of installing the pool. So basically, we also completed a trench, which was very expensive to move the electrical to be in compliance with how far the electrical had to be from the edge of the water. That was an expensive project. We had to reroute temporarily the sprinklers, which was another expensive project. So all this work we did in preparation without there ever being an indication from either the county or the city who approved the tree removal that there was ever going to be any issue or problem with putting the pool in that area. So we marched forward. We're thousands of dollars in at this point. If you turn to the next section, it's called precedents. In this section of the presentation, I just drove around our beautiful town, and we used to walk around and bike and everything, and walk the dog. I just pointed out a couple of properties that have either one or both elements of what we're looking to do at our home. These are corner lots that may have a tall fence in the front, maybe a 6-foot fence. Not something that we're necessarily looking to do. We're fans of foliage. But the fact is that there are large fences in front of homes, 4-foot, 6-foot. There's also pools in front yards. So I went to a couple of these properties, the main one being on 2508 Bay Boulevard. That particular property actually has a 6-foot fence. If you look at the picture that's provided, you see a white mailbox. That fence is not only a 6-foot fence in the front yard with a pool behind it, but that fence is less than, I took a measurement, and it's less than 7 feet from the curb. So I have, and allegedly these people were able to complete this project without a variance request. I have no idea if that's, true or
Let's
not.
stick with your property if we can.
Very well.
Thank you.
Very well. Okay, am I allowed to go over precedents though?
As it relates to variances, there's no precedent on other properties. It's simply your property that's at issue today, sir.
Okay. All right, well, that's the same thing that I thought we were gonna have the ability to discuss that. That's what we were told during the.
You can certainly raise any points you wish to raise. I'm telling you, for purposes of this body's analysis,
It's not
what has been done at other properties is not competent, substantial evidence of the factors for your property.
Okay, all right, I understand. I just want to raise the point that if others were allowed to do that, we feel that it should be considered.
This is your time, sir. Use it as you wish.
Okay, the next thing is the building plan. It just explains we're looking to put a pool in the south part of the yard, accompanying a legal barrier. Of course, you have to have that, whether it be a kitty fence or some type of barrier to keep the pool safe. And also, we would like to add additional landscaping. We miss, as I stated, our beautiful landscaping we had there before. I've got a rough diagram of what the pool's supposed to look like. It does include a tree. We want to add trees back. I took out 3 large trees, technically 6 because the areca palms are trees. And we want to reestablish some of that or put some more greenery back in that area to beautify the corner again. The very next page This shows our neighbor's property. There's a small, I believe it's a 3-foot fence, kind of like a picket sort of looking fence. Our neighbors are very friendly. They're from Massachusetts. They recently decided to move here full time. They are in support of this request that we're submitting today. And we discussed the fact that the fence there in that area does need to be replaced. It's very old, it's falling apart. I've screwed in several of those boards and fixed them to keep them straight, keep it nice looking for him while he was away. Following page, under the petition and conclusion header, we did submit materials with signatures, a petition that we walked around the neighborhood specifically to anyone within 150 feet that was a live-in resident, because there's several rentals on our street, so we weren't able to get everyone's signature, but everyone that was there and available signed and approved. We have 18 signatures from our neighbors. We're also furnishing 2 letters, one from our immediate neighbor at 122 13th Avenue, and the other one is from our neighbor directly across the street, who's the only one that has the straight eye shot and is not renting the property. That would be Mr. and Mrs. Yanez. They're located at 1213 1st Street. And I have a copy of both letters. And behind that page, you'll see the actual letter in larger print, so it's easier to read. That they are in support of this request. They had no objections. They point out, both of them, that they love the way that we keep our home manicured. We walk around the neighborhood lots. We do notice there's a lot of yards that are very unkempt. We've never kept our yard. We take pride in it. Like I said, we love our community. We plan on living the rest of our lives out here, and we want to make sure that our home is always pristine. And then in conclusion, on the very last page, I just have a couple of points here, specifically for this request and for this property, that approval of this particular request is not going to confer any special privileges to us as applicants. Again, based on precedents, and I understand that that may or may not be considered. Now, it will also not deprive our any other owners within the area, our neighbors, of the use or enjoyment of their properties in any way, shape, or form. We're very quiet. We're very clean. We don't have large parties that are raucous. So we are very respectful and considerate of our neighbors. Also, this project would not be injurious to the area involved or be considered otherwise detrimental to public welfare in any way, shape, or form. We had no power to control how the home was built. Allegedly, there was a third party that was entrusted to design the home for someone that lived out of state. That's how we ended up with this unique home. Although inside we love it. The request to build a pool in that described location is for, we feel, for use of the property it's definitely within our property lines, and we feel that it's reasonable. It doesn't encroach on city land, so I don't think we're asking for anything above and beyond from what we've seen. The addition of the pool is not going to result in any undue burden to the city for future development, and it's definitely not going to result in anything that's going to be considered an eyesore or anything unsightly. And with that, I conclude my presentation. I thank you all very much for your time, and thank you for allowing me as much time as you did. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Before you sit down,
Yes.
do any of the commissioners or does the vice mayor, anyone have any questions for the applicant?
The only question I have, rolling it back to when you purchased the property, it seems to me that if that land was supposed to convey, that should have been probably part of your complete real estate deal and recorded and so forth, because what you had was a verbal that probably had no teeth in it.
Well, I think that's the case, but we were trying to confirm whether we could, whether that could either convey or whether we could do the variance afterward. The survey, we could not get an answer from the realtor. He literally would hang up the phone on us, and we asked the question, it's a yes or no question. So we tried to do our due diligence. We also had our agent. She had a hard time getting the information. We ultimately decided that the survey would be the determining factor that would definitely tell us what conveyed and what didn't.
Right.
And in fact did, of course. And then after we got that, we were so deep into it and we fell in love with the house, you know, and we thought we had that other glimmer of hope for that usage of the, under the variance circumstance, which we had never heard of. It's unique to us. And that turned out to also be false or retracted from us.
Thank you.
Sure.
Joe, any questions for the applicant?
Not at this time.
No? Greg?
Well,
is
at this
there
time,
any-
we'd open it up to,
Well, I was
oh,
gonna-
sorry, questions,
Greg?
apologies.
Anything that you
Nope.
Okay. At this time, I'm gonna have you sit down for a few minutes.
Thank you very much.
And, I'd like to know if any, we're gonna open the public comment, and if anyone would like to come forward at this time to make a comment on this variance, please come forward. You have 3 minutes. Yes, sir.
My name is Dave Greiner. I'm the pool builder and owner of Patton Pools and Spas. I'm the one who they contracted with to put the pool in. There was a couple things that I wanted to bring up as I look over the survey, especially a couple presidents that I kind of look at, that I see when I look at surveys. There was a lot of misinformation that was given at the beginning. And a couple things that I'm noticing is coming up kind of different when we look at the variance paperwork and what we're doing this for. Originally, I was told that 13th Street had a 7.5-foot setback from the property line, and then the front yard was First Street and it was 25 feet from the property line, or from the street originally. There was a couple things that kind of bring a red flag up to me.
Hold on 1 second. Who told you that?
It was the first one I originally called. It was planning and zoning from the beginning, and then when we called back again, I was told it was a mistake. And this is the reason why I bring this up. From First Street, the house setback, what I was told was 25 feet from the street or from the property line, would put the front of the house 10 feet in from the property line, would be 20 feet away, it would be 15 foot in over top of the easement going into the property line with the front of the house, with the way the house is set up. Which we took that and we actually built the pool on the side of the property and we pushed it 4 feet in, so it's actually behind the house. But at the time they were considering that the front, and then it turned around that 13th Street was the front, and that we were going up 2 front setback properties, which throws my red flag up is because if you measure from where the front of the house is to the street, it's exactly 25 feet. Which is typical when you go to any other municipality. You know, Pinellas County, because when I found out that they were taking over the inspections, I called just to clarify to see if I was maybe in the wrong with that. And they typically measure that setback from the street and not the property line in the front, because most houses don't have that property all the way to the front. It's typically 5 foot back when you bring up other surveys in other areas. Which is why we set the pool up to be in this spot behind the house. But then when we turned it in, we were told that it was 25 feet from the actual, from 13th Street or from First Street from the property line, was 25 feet from that, which pushes it all the way to the back side of the house. But then that's the part that is kind of confusing, is because we were considering that a front yard, which the house would have to be built 25 feet away as it is on 13th. If you look on 13th from the property line, the house is exactly built 25 feet away. But this is also First Street, which is also considered the front yard setback as well too. Which is the part that's confusing, because typically, I could bring up 100 different surveys. All property setbacks in most areas are 25 foot from the street, and the property line sits either 5 foot or 10 foot in, all the way around the adjacent property. Which is where it brings my red flag up to where I understand where their precedence is about where they're putting the pool. It's the side yard was considered the front because it's double-sided, which would be, my question is, why wouldn't they follow those guidelines for the front side of the house and the front side of the house when it was built, which is why there's nowhere else to put the pool on the property, which is, this is the best spot. And there was a couple things that I wanted to bring up as well too, because I know you guys are very big with cleanliness. I've built a lot of pools in your area. I've done them for other companies, and I've done them for my own. One of the things that I'm going to do to make sure that everything goes smooth, my traditional build time, I always ask for 8 to 10 weeks. I'm trying to get it done within 6 to 8 weeks. One of the main things I want to make sure you guys know that I will do is, now that we have everything away, all the trees are gone, we will put up a yellow safety fence or orange safety fence all the way around to keep all the construction intact into the yard. Also make sure we do daily sweeps of the street every day after we're done with construction. There won't be construction every day, but there will be, every week there'd be a crew coming in. We come in and do our stuff. I come in and check out the work. I have a cleaning crew that comes in after all of my crews are done, just to make sure that the street and everything is good for people to drive through. Typically, we don't
We
bring
need
it.
to wrap it up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's
So
okay.
typically, we're going to try to keep it very clean. And in the last meeting, there was a safety concern that brought up, which me and the homeowners had talked about doing. Instead of the 4.5-foot safety fence, what we want to do is do a baby gate all the way around the outside perimeter of the pavers, which would help. It's going to be much safer, and also it's 42 inches tall, and it all will go with the guidelines of how a pool is supposed to be installed and follow all the safety requirements.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Is there anyone else who'd like to come up at this time? Bill? Hi.
Hi, Phil Roble, 112 13th Avenue. Some of us were here when this house was built. Teddy Mims hired, no relationship, I imagine.
I appreciate that.
Teddy Mims hired Angelo, who worked for a realty company, to build him the house. And I can remember after the house was built, because Teddy would come by and he'd always go fishing. Every day he was here and I'd be out working in the yard, and he'd say, why did that man build the house he did when I could have had a garage like you, I could have had a pool, I could have had this, and he just gave this Angelo the money and trusted him, which that was the first hardship on this property, which was terrible. And also, when it was listed, I mean, because I remember when it first went up, I jumped online and looked at it, and it's like, holy cow, that's an L-shaped lot, because they advertised it as you have that. And I realized, he tried to do his due diligence, but it's, I mean, when you're excited about buying a house, I mean, when I bought mine over here, there were some things that were like, what the heck? And I came into City Hall to get a fence permit, and I showed them where the fence was, and they told me, you gotta remove that fence, it's illegal. I said, I just bought the house. It's illegal, get that fence out of there. It's like, okay, whatever. So, but I mean, the hardship, I mean, they're great neighbors. They take care of their house greatly. It's nice that it's not an Airbnb. And also, I have no problem with, I know that it'll just be the upkeep, it'll be beautiful. There is precedence, I think, by like the ones on Bay Boulevard and that, where those fences, the garbage is out front right on Bay Boulevard, and that's the front of their house. So if I think someone can have their garbage in front of their house on the road on Bay Boulevard with a 6-foot fence, he should be able to have a pool in his front yard. I don't think there's a problem with it at all. They're great neighbors.
Thank you, Phil. Is there anyone else who'd like to come up at this time? Hi.
Hi, my name is Alex Dorman. I'm at 126 11th Ave, so I'm right down the street from Patty and Jorge. And I would just like to voice that I think the pools in this area are gorgeous. They really do help to beautify the area. They make it that vacation feel and just that tropical feel, and with their plans to really build up kind of a little bit of foliage around it, I think it'll look beautiful. And additionally, just monetarily, not to bring this up, but that'll also increase the tax value of the house as well, right, the property. And so I think that's also a consideration to increase the property values in Indian Rocks Beach.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who'd like to come up at this time? Okay, Jorge, do you want to come up?
And staff gets
Staff, anything
Not
else?
good.
Okay, Jorge, do you want one last comment?
Thank you very much.
Did you miss anything that you wanted?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Alex actually just reminded me of this. Our community is very varied, and that's something that we really pride ourselves in. It's not cookie cutter. That's the one thing that I really love about our community. As I walk around or bike around, I can see that there's such a variety of homes. We have everything from, your small houses you can probably touch the ceiling in, all the way up to these beautiful multi-million-dollar homes. Everyone is unique. nothing's the same, and I think that what we're asking to do is going to add to that charm that we have here in Indian Rocks and that we all probably pride ourselves in. There's no other community like Indian Rocks, and I think that this would definitely add to our beautiful community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to close the public comment at this time, and I am looking for a motion.
I would motion to approve the variance.
Joe is going to motion to approve the variance. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any comments from the maker?
Just briefly, like I say, obviously there seems to be some confusion on the front of the home. And obviously beautifying our town.
Joe, you're gonna have to speak more into the mic.
Sorry. Normally that's not a problem for me. So basically, seems to be some confusion, obviously, with the front of the home. And I really don't see any detrimental part about improving this property for our town.
Thank you, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Ed, what would you like to any comment?
No, I do have a clarifying question because the font on the survey is not good. What is the setback on the legal
I'd like to know that.
front yard? It looks like 14 feet on this graphic, but in the text it says there's a 25-foot setback, but on this drawing, to me, it says 14.1 feet. Do we have a better quality of the survey? I zoomed it in, I couldn't see it anymore.
Are you looking at one on First?
No, that's the side yard. I'm trying to find the front yard, which is 13th Avenue.
If you look, and I'm trying to.
And it says 14.
It's 14, but that's not the front of the house. Then there's an additional area. I'm trying to read up. I think there's about 10 more feet before you get to the front of the house.
I just don't see that on the survey.
Yeah, it's right there. It's 13.
That's the side yard. The front yard is down on 13.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, down there. I'm sorry. Yeah. You're looking.
You see one? I don't have that. I don't have it.
Yeah, from the property line.
Yeah, no, I don't have this.
I have a better copy.
I've got it.
Yeah, no, I see it. Okay, so it's 25
It's
feet.
20. It's 25.1 inch.
Thank you. I see it. I didn't have that printed out. I see it.
Commissioner Flagg, do you have any
I
questions?
was just curious, the pool's gonna go, how far from the street will the pool be?
The pool itself is going to be.
Sir, I need you to speak into the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't see a drawing of it.
So if you look at the setup from the street is actually 14 feet from the property line.
I'm not talking about the street, I'm talking about the property line.
You're in
From
the
the
back.
25 feet that you have here, how far does the pool come to the end of the property line?
7.5 foot. So the pool, you have the bottom property line here. The pool sits back 7.5 foot from that property line, and then on First Ave, it sits 10 feet. But the actual pool itself is going to be 14 feet from 13, and then or from First, it's going to be 14 feet, and then from the 13th Street, the pool itself would be about 22 feet from the street. And then when they put their hedges up and everything around, you still have that 14 foot from the property line that have, a view for anyone driving through. It shouldn't block anyone's view when they're going to turn, because they'll be able to see easily down that street. I know that's a big thing too, with not being able to see around the corner in some areas because of fences and trees and stuff like that. But they have plenty of space from the actual street till it actually gets to their property line, and then we're 7.5 feet back from there.
Diane, anything else?
No, I'm just trying to visualize that. So then typically that house takes the whole lot now, right? Except for that 25 feet. So the
Yeah.
whole property will be pool and house, no green space. Is that what I'm?
No, there's still plenty of green space.
7
So-
feet?
Yeah, well, you have 7.5 foot from the property line, from the back, but the property line sits 14.1 back from the street, which is something that they take care of as well. So all of that, all the way around that street is gonna be green space. But you also have a ton of green space, which is the actual front yard. That's all green space as well too. And actually, from what I remember, I'm trying to remember my calculations off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure after everything's said and done, we had a 42% calculated green space left over after the job was done, and the requirements is 35%.
Thank you.
One thing just.
What about the trees? I know we took out 3 trees.
I don't,
That's
that have anything to do with
that's
it.
not on this application, Mayor.
I would like to clear one thing though, just for the sake of clarity. This 14 feet in the area along this other side, that's all city right away.
That's right away?
Yes, right away.
14-foot right away, then there's a 25-foot
Yeah,
setback
you know,
on top of that?
yes, sir, the setback is measured from the property line, not the curve of the street. But it is true, like, any house in any right speech, pick a street, Harbor Drive, there's always an area. Anywhere that, like you stand and look at where the power poles are, usually from the power poles out is public property. But it's, that's typically property owners maintain the grass area from the property. But that 14 feet in the area on the side, that's all public right away.
Phil, do you have any questions?
No, I just usually confused. Legally, your address is the 13th Avenue, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that to me would be the front of the house.
Yes.
All right. I'm sorry that you ran into all these problems from day one. Your agent was not forthright with you, and it's unfortunate. I guess that kind of presents a little bit of a hardship, but I think I'd be asking some very strong questions at DVPR of that individual if it were me. So that's fine. Thanks for the clarification on that.
Any other questions before the commission? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner McCall and a second by Mr. Hofnagel. Dan, would you like to take the roll?
Vice Mayor Hannah,
Approve.
Commissioner Fly,
Yes.
Commissioner Hooknagel,
Who seconded the motion?
I seconded the motion so that we could have the discussion. I didn't have a chance to comment after making the second of the motion. I asked a question. I feel that the survey is clear. Regardless of what the real estate agent said, I feel that the structure could not have been built if it weren't put on the wrong side. It's unfortunate that the house is oriented the way it is, but the survey is clear, and the staff and the Board of Adjustments have recommended to deny it based on that, and I'm concurring with them.
Commissioner McCall,
Approve.
Mayor Kennedy.
No. Motion is denied.
No,
motion carries. It's a
carries.
3-2 vote,
3-2
Mayor.
vote.
Okay. Congratulations. With that, we will move on to agenda item number 7, other legislative matters. Are there any to come before this board? If not, we'll go to agenda item, work session item. We have none. Agenda item, other business. Is there any to come before this board? And with that, I'll look for a motion for adjournment.
I have a quick question, what the work session is on July 23rd?
It's the parking.
There's
No,
a work
there's-
session on the 23rd that will address multiple issues, including parking, temporary parking permits, golf carts, beach, abandoned property, and park hours.
We'll send out.
But there will be further notice on
You're
that.
gonna send out a postcard on that one?
Yeah, can I address this for a second?
All right,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, they'll, no, not gonna send out a postcard because there's not time to do that. We'll put out an agenda with a detailed list of what the topics are. It's just a work session, so anything that the Commission reaches consensus on, they would instruct Randy and I to draft an ordinance, which would mean there'd be two public hearings in order to do that.
Right,
But
right.
we'll put that out tomorrow.
I just want to make sure enough people know about it.
Well, we will make sure that happens.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for coming tonight. This meeting is adjourned.
Oh, we didn't get a first and second.
Yeah. Motion to adjourn.
Well, who was first?
I'll motion to adjourn.
All right, we stand adjourned.
And if I just may tell you all, the young lady that was sitting there in the yellow that just left, she bought the house on the corner of 11th, and